Tonight, expenditure from office of the president that has triggered calls for full disclosure, with millions of cedis spent on foreign travels, refreshments, funeral donations, and school fees.
Is he buying a new plane with 62.3 million Ghana for 62.5 million Ghana cedis? Refreshment, partying, tea, 1.980, almost 2 million Ghana cedis on refreshment, tea. How?
We have the breakdown that has left Parliament divided.
It is making an absolute statement, an absolute submission. I have no problem. But if you argue in relative terms, then I challenge it.
We have details.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder, and Vodafone. The future is exciting ready. The NDC minority in Parliament is tonight up in arms against the presidency, accusing Jubilee House of abuse of public funds while demanding full disclosure. Documents containing expenditure details show that the cabinet and the Chief of Staff Secretariat spent millions of cedis on foreign travels, refreshments, funeral donations, school fees, among others. We'll go through the documents as was laid before Parliament and debated today shortly. But first, listen to Minority Spokesperson on Finance, Kaisel Atoforsi.
Something that we do not have to encourage. I strongly believe that the time has come for Ghanaians to demand accountability from the office of the president in terms of the expenditure that goes on. Within the last 9 months, it will surprise you to know that we were told that His Excellency the President has spent almost 63 million Ghana cedis on foreign travels. Foreign travels. 63 million Ghana cedis alone on foreign travels. In fact, it will surprise you to know that apart from the foreign travel costs, domestic, local accommodation, he spent 5.8 million Ghana cedis on accommodation, local, not foreign accommodation, which is in excess of $1 million. Again, the operational enhancement support expenses, he spent 68.9, almost 69 million Ghana cedis on operational support expenses. What sort of operational expenses is this? Operational expenses, to do what? 68 million, apart from the 65 million that you used to travel. Is he buying a new plane with 62.3 million Ghana for 62.5 million Ghana cedis? Refreshment, partying, tea, 1.980, almost 2 million Ghana cedis on refreshment, tea. How? The vice president's office is similar. He also spent in fact, they spend almost the same amount on refreshment. His Excellency the President spent 25 pesos more than the Vice President on refreshment. I mean, look, we need to demand accountability like any other minister that we are demanding accountability. The office of the Chief of Staff is spending a bit too much. This is contrary to the past. No government has spent this kind of money for foreign travels. No government. No, they should tell us. They should tell us how much. We never did that. These guys, are you sure they would have sat down for us to do this? No. No president in history has spent about $12 million for 9 months only for foreign travels. No president in our history.
I want to go to Parliament now and bring in my parliamentary correspondent, Parker Wilson, who joins us on the telephone line right now. Parker, tell me, this came formally before the House for a debate?
So this is a document the ranking member on the Finance Committee, Forson, made reference to on the floor of the House. In fact, according to him, the document was submitted to them at the committee level, and that was where they raised the concerns about the expenditure from the office of the chief of staff. And the point he made was that it is quite worrying that the chief of staff will be spending almost about 70 million on foreign travels and 1.9 million Ghana cedis on refreshment. His point is that these monies perhaps could have been used to alleviate the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian. So it is interesting that the government that is talking about having the welfare of the people is rather spending these amounts of money on things that are not important or relevant to the people of this country.
How did the majority side respond to this? Hello, Parker. Hello, Parker.
Alexander Martin, MP for Efutu, he interjected. In fact, when the ranking member was making the point about the expenditure. Now, according to Afenya Martin, under the NDC administration, and at the time that Case Forson himself was the deputy finance minister, the budgetary allocation for the office of the chief of staff was way higher than what we are seeing today. So he questioned the morals that he had to even raise the concern about the fact that the office of the chief of staff now is spending about 1.9 million Ghana cedis on refreshments. Listen to him on the floor.
The reason being that with the emphasis on the chief of staff's allocation, what he's trying to suggest that in the past it used to be less, but he and I know that he was a deputy finance minister. Allocation to the office of chief of staff within the 8-year regime, particularly when he became deputy minister of finance. Mr. Speaker, he knows that the figures were far higher, and actually far higher as compared to others allocated to ministries. Mr. Speaker, if he is making an absolute statement, an absolute submission, I have no problem. But if you argue in relative terms, then I challenge you. I challenge you, bring out the figures you had when you were deputy finance minister.
So, in Parliament, as you just heard there, the debate then got to comparisons. You heard Case Forson make the point that the sort of expenditure that he's referring to has never happened before. You had Afenya Marking, MP for Efutu, also make the point that that is not accurate because during their time they spent far more than that. We've been digging ourselves to try and see if we can fact check this and see what the facts say. If you compare the two governments. My colleague Joseph Akable joins me with details of what we found. Joseph, should we start in 2014?
Yes, and so there's a report in 2014 on December 14 where Parliament had placed a ceiling of 30 million, but according to the committee's report...
So 30 million, you can't spend beyond that?
Beyond that, yes. But according to the committee's report, the presidency had spent nearly 76 million between January and September of that year.
And let's emphasize, January to September is the same period which is now triggering the same controversy. Yes. Now. This is also January to September expenditure that is being analyzed. Let's go to some of the specifics in that. If you look at the Chief of Staff office, which again is a subject of controversy now, they were giving, they overspent their budget by 41 million cedis. And if you go to the breakdown, it shows you how this came about.
Yes, so the presidency was allocated 16.5 million cedis for general administration, but by the end of September, the report said it had spent 23.2 million cedis. The office of the chief of staff was allocated a little more than 7.5 million cedis, but exceeded its allocation nearly sevenfold. That's an amount of 49 million cedis.
Okay, so 7.5 million that was allocated to it. By the time they've done 9 months, they have spent that times 7. Almost that came down to 49 million CDs.
Yes. And so what is interesting is that at the time, Alexander Afenya Markin, who at that point was a minority MP, had raised this particular issue, had complained about it, and he's quoted as saying that if the office of the chief of staff alone overspent its budget by 41 million, then it meant some critical aspects of government machinery did not receive what they were meant to have received per the budget.
Okay, now if you fast forward to 2008, you find another report in which the this current government, then it was Mustafa Hamid, was also referring to documents that they've also, as a new government, then a year into administration, talked about when as it relates to expenditure for the presidency under John Dramani Mahama.
Yes, in fact, he had made a point that despite the criticism against the number of appointees serving in the current government, he says that it had shown that the John Mahama administration had spent more at the presidency than they were doing. And so he said on Joy FM, on the Sport Morning Show actually, he said that our list, for example, is a little above the President Mahama list. But if you look at the budget for office machinery under President Mahama, it is way above our budget. For 2017, they had about 3 billion cedis, but we came in 2017 with 1.5 billion cedis, he told Danadazi on the Sport Morning Show.
Joseph, thank you very much. I want to go to the phone lines now and bring in Kaisel Atoforce. Do I have Mr. Atoforce on the line? I think we lost him. We'll try and get him back on this matter, which has led Parliament divided. But you could join us with your views also on the 0244340437. If you're just joining us, in fact, Joseph, let's go through the list as we have it, because we have the documents here. Let's start with the details of the Chief of Staff Secretariat. And let's go through the list and how much was spent.
And so a number of items, let me run you through some of them. So there is foreign travel cost and expenses. That has an amount of 62.578 million cedis. There is also hotel accommodation amounting to 5.8 million cedis. Refreshment,
which is the one that is causing quite some controversy.
Yes, that is the one you heard him talk about, the tea. That is 1.9 million cedis.
Okay, 1.9 million cedis for a period of 9 months, he says. Now, if you also look at operational enhancement expenses, which again he talks about and says, are they buying a plane? Operational enhancement expenses, 68 million cedis. Now, rentals of office and residential accommodation, that is 900,000 cedis. Now, fuel and lubricants, and we need to get some explanation around this. Fuel and lubricants, the Chief of Staff Secretariat spent 4.8 million cedis on fuel and lubricants. Now, if you look at support to MDAs, they spent 7.2 million cedis. Now, if you come to printed material and stationery, for example,
you have 1.6 million cedis. Office facilities and accessories, you have 6.5 million cedis. And telecommunications, you have 1.8 million cedis. And then maintenance and repairs of vehicles. This is different from the fuel and lubricants, which obviously applies to the vehicles that we have talked about. So maintenance and repairs of vehicles is 5.9 million cedis.
There are few questions to ask just about those two line items, because I mean, if you own a car before, fuel and lubricants normally will come under repairs and maintenance. I mean, but that is separated. And if you look at that, we spent almost the same figure on fuel and lubricants, that 4.8 million cedis, as we spent on maintenance and repairs, which is put at 5.9 million cedis. This is just about a million cedis difference there. That needs to be explained. I mean, fuel and lubricants, 4.8 million cedis alone on that line item, and then maintenance and repairs, 5.8 million. Now let's go to the another, which is the Cabinet Secretariat. That too has some very interesting figures there. Let's talk about the ones that are raising a few eyebrows.
And so we have night allowance, that is an amount of 24,476. There is funeral donations, that amounts to 26,300 cedis. There is also vehicle ties and repairs. You have an amount of 429,000 cedis. Then there is DSTV subscription. That has an amount of, for 9 months, an amount of 34,440 cedis.
And then there's a one about school fees.
That's actually item 7. You have an amount of 10,930, and questions are being raised about whose school fees this amount is being used for, because this is a detailed expenditure.
This is a Cabinet Secretariat.
Yes.
So why is a Cabinet Secretariat paying school fees? And it's in an official document. And there's also beverages and snacks.
That's an amount of 436,706 cedis.
That's almost like 500,000 cedis spent on beverages and snacks. Then there is catering services. So there is beverages and snacks, and then there's catering services also that is separate. How much is the catering service?
And so for the catering service, there's 801,000 cedis, whilst for the beverages and snacks, you have 436,000 cedis.
Okay. There are a few other things, though.
Air tickets and travel and visa fees, because the issue of travel has also become very topical. It's item number 18 on this document. It has an amount of 386,000 cedis.
I also see honorarium, which is 421,000 cedis, are also on the list. And if you go to details of general administration, there's also general administration, which also comes with, also has fuel and lubricants on it.
Yes, you have an amount of 2.9 million cedis for the fuel and lubricants.
Okay, so let's do a comparison here for the for cabinet secretariat. That's not okay. This is under the chief of staff secretariat.
Yes.
Well, the chief of staff secretariat, they spend 4.8 million for fuel and lubricants, and then general administration spend 2.9 million cedis on fuel and lubricants.
Yes, and still on the general administration, there is the bit about toiletries that amounts to 1.2 million cedis. It goes on to list vehicle repairs, also some 751,000 cedis. Cleaning services, 4.4 million cedis.
Okay, Joseph, thank you very much. Case Dr. Forsen is on the line with me now. Hello, Mr. Dr. Forsen.
Hello, guys.
As you just indicated, I mean, you were challenged on the floor that when you stated that this is unprecedented, no other president had done this before, it wasn't accurate. In fact, if you look at 2014, the Chief of Staff Office overspent its budget. It was given a budget of 7.5. In 9 months, they spent 49 million cedis. What's your reaction? That clearly is the evidence that shows.
Evans, one, that is wrong for someone to say that I'm wrong. I said no president has spent 62.5 million Ghana cedis on foreign travel in our history. In fact, equivalent of 13.3 million US dollars on travels for 9 months is unprecedented. I've checked the records, I've gone back, and it's not the case. In fact, if indeed in the year you're making reference to, we spent 41 million at the office of the Chief of Staff. Today we are talking of 168 million Ghana cedis, only as goods and services from the office of the Chief of Staff.
May I ask, what was the budget giving for the office of the Chief of Staff?
Okay, let me take you through this. One, we were told that the office of the President has 6 cost centers. One is the general administration. 2 is the office of the Chief of Staff, and that is where the President, His Excellency the President, operates from. You have the Vice President Secretariat, the Cabinet Secretariat, the Press Secretariat, and the Policy Coordination and Delivery Unit. For the year under question, 2019, for 9 months, so far, they have spent 52.1 million as compensation. Okay? Wages and salaries and allowances. Now, goods and services, if you are to add all these 6 cost centers in, you get 206 million Ghana cedis. That's how much they have spent. Of which the Chief of Staff Secretariat alone, where His Excellency the President operates from, they have spent 168.9 million Ghana cedis as goods and services.
What was the estimate approved for them? Have they overspent?
The estimated for the entire year is 222 million.
So they have not overspent. So far, they are still under the budget.
It has nothing to do with overspending. It has nothing to do, but we want to drill down to find out what they've used the money for.
Yeah, but Mr. Tufose, the Parliament approved. I get you. And my question is, Parliament approved more than 200 million cedis for the office. The office. Parliament. But the office in 9 months have spent under that figure, so they are within budget.
So they may be within budget, but what they spend the money on is a question. And remember that they have not even ended the year, so you cannot conclude that they have not overspent their budget yet.
I mean, we are looking at the figures.
So this
before.
is 9 months.
Yes,
this is 9 months.
But you see, the question I'm asking here is relevant because in Parliament you did a comparative analysis, and I'm saying to you that if you look at the figures for the Chief of Staff in 2014, in the same 9 months, your approved budget then was 7.5 million. In 9 months, you overspent that by times 7, which was 49 million cedis. I mean, if you compare like to like, this current administration is within budget. Yours in 2014 at least is way out of budget.
Evans, you make a mistake if you only look at the budget. You have to look at two things: how much they have spent, the amount, the quantum. Two, you have to also look at what they have spent the money on and do the comparison, not just budgeting, because you can over budget or under budget. What is important is for us to see what you have used the money for and the quantum of the expenditure. And I'm telling you that based on the document that they gave to us, and I questioned the kind of money they spend the money on. Look, the Chief of Staff's operational expenses alone, 68.9 million, almost 69 million Ghana cedis. That is far more than the budget for the Office of the Chief of Staff for entire year under NDC administration, 2016. 68.9 million. Now, the question is, on the foreign travel cost and expenses, they spent 62.5 million for 9 months only. That should be a matter of concern. What kind of travels are that? What kind of plane are we spending the money on to give us 62.5 million Ghana cedis expenditure? Why? Are we buying an aircraft? Is that a deposit to acquire an aircraft? We should be concerned about that. We should be concerned about the fact that they have spent almost 2 million Ghana cedis on refreshment for 9 months, only at the Chief of Staff's office. In fact, when you go to the Vice President's office too, they have spent all the same amount, 1.9 million Ghana cedis on refreshment. If you look at collectively fuel that they have spent money on and add all of them together, fuel and lubricants, it's in excess of 15 million Ghana cedis. Add all of them, put them together, and then look at maintenance and repairs of vehicles. Office of the Chief of Staff alone is 6 million Ghana cedis, approximately, because it's 5.98 million Ghana cedis. So the question, my argument is that we should live above the ceiling. We should be questioning what we are spending the money on. We should be asking why the quantum has increased over the period astronomically, and find out, is there value for money? Is it the way we spend taxpayers' money? Why are we not spending the money on certain infrastructure development? Why are we not spending the money to provide water for people? Look, it can give, what do you call it, water to a number of communities.
No, but isn't that oversimplifying the issue? Because of course, but isn't that why Parliament does budget and approves budget? There is budget for water already. There's budget for infrastructure. There's budget for this Chief of Staff Secretariat. And you say foreign travel and cost expenses. We all know presidents do travel, and they travel in entourage. If they travel, they have to stay in hotels, etc. All that in the 9 months come down to the figure, and it's within budget.
Brother, Evans, let me give you an example. In the year 2020, they have said that they are going to spend only on the Chief of Staff Secretariat an amount of 243 million. I have asked for the breakdown. What they told me at the committee is that they do not have the breakdown now because they are only going to look at, it's only a budget. And they use the word only a budget, and they are going to give us the breakdown as in hand when they use it. And that is why we demanded at the committee that they should indeed give us the breakdown of what they spent already, only for them to give us this. And I think that, and that as part of the work that we do in Parliament, we should be exerting an oversight on how public funds are being used. And that is what I'm saying, going forward, we shouldn't just be interested in the budget or the ceiling. We should be interested in what we use the money for. Because I can come and say that, hey, I need 250 million to run the office of the president. I need 300 million to run the office of the president. But until you give me the detail, I don't know what you are spending the money on. Okay. And I cannot continue as to whether it is the prudent way to spend our money or not. So we should be interested in that.
In the interest of just being consistent, whichever government is in power, on the point we made to you in the fact checking about what was spent in 2014, the overspending of the budget by 45 million cedis. What was the 45 million cedis extra budget overrun used for? What was it used for then?
The 45 million extra money that was used for was for the running, the entire running. And you recall that at the time they budgeted 7 million Ghana cedis. 7 million Ghana
7.5
cedis.
to be specific.
Okay. So if it's 7.5 million Ghana cedis, efficiently, you can question that looking at this astronomical numbers we are seeing, at that point, probably that money wasn't enough. And so they spent 40 million. Okay, 40 million. So if you spend 40 million,
you were deputy finance minister. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
yes, I am.
and there's a reason why you do budget. You sat in the finance ministry, did the budget. You say I'm not arguing that the budget wasn't enough, so it was right to overspend by 7 times the number you approved.
Evans, I recall that in the year 2017, it is that cost center that overspent, but the entire office of the president did not overspend because they did what we call violent. They vire resources from one cost center to the other. As long as you stay within the ceiling, that cannot be called overspending. Because you are still within the overall ceiling.
Yeah, but to your core argument now, you say it's not really about how much has been spent, whether it's within budget or not, but it's about what the money. Okay, so I'm asking you. So I'm asking the same question just for principle's sake. That for the 45 million cedis more you spent in 2014 as a deputy finance minister, what was that used for then?
Even a number of things was used the money on, and it will be difficult for me to give you exact numbers. But I can tell you on authority that the office of the president at the time, the chief of staff secretariat at the time, did not spend more than 10 million Ghana cedis on foreign travels. No, it did not. They used part of the money for chief of staff's operational expenditure. That we are seeing 68 million today. Part of it was used that. Others was used to run the office like fuel and then for maintenance of cars. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that I have challenged them. They should come out and tell us if any president in our history has spent almost $13 million US, $13 million US on foreign travels. Office of the Chief of Staff, $13 million US. Evans, it's too much.
I'm grateful that you joined me, Kaisel Ato-Forsing. He is he was a former deputy finance minister, also currently the spokesperson for the minority on finance. We've tried to get some clarity on this from the Jubilee House, but from government as well, also from the majority side of the committee. Once we get that, we will bring that to you as well.
Financial services,